My name's Danny Thomas, and this is Back of the Net and Beyond. And today I'm going to be speaking to Trystan Finocchiaro, who's a professional motorcycle racer. How's it going, mate? You okay?
Yeah, no, all good. Yeah, just got back from a weekend of racing, so yeah, all good.
Oh, really? Tell me about it. How's it going?
Yeah, it was a positive weekend for me. I've just stepped up from a lower capacity bike, 300cc to 600cc.
Okay.
So it's my rookie season on the 600cc class this year.
Right.
So it was good in terms of we made good progression. The main thing for me this year is to be learning, and that's what we were doing.
Yeah.
We went really well. Unfortunately, we didn't finish the race because there was a big second corner on the first lap. There was a big crash at turn 2, and I got caught up in that. So
Oh, wow.
unfortunately, we weren't able to finish the race. But there was a lot of positives to take away from the weekend anyway. And we're at Silverstone soon, which is just around the corner. So we'll be able to take those positives into Silverstone.
Nice. And in terms of the crash, was everyone okay in the end? No, casualties or anything?
Yeah, luckily it was on the slowest corner on the circuit, really. So yeah, everyone was fine pretty much. Yeah, just a bit of cosmetic damage to the bikes and stuff. But yeah, no, everyone walked away pretty much all right.
Brilliant. I mean, like I said before, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate your time. In terms of the podcast, it's obviously to make people aware that athletes do have transferable skills which are suited to other industries, whether it's sport or something completely different. So I'm obviously speaking to people like yourself and figures within sport just to get the message out there. So like I said, appreciate your time today. I'm from a footballing background, so I haven't got a clue about motorcycle racing. So do you just want to tell us about life as a motorcycle racer?
Well, at the moment it's non-stop because of the delays. Everything's so back to back. But it's I mean you spend a lot of time traveling to rounds and stuff, and it's and a lot of it's about keeping fit for the races. There's a big lifestyle around that, or what riders tend to do a lot of cycling, stuff like that, for to stay fit for riding. And also you can train on doing stuff like riding like smaller bikes on karting circuits and stuff.
Okay.
So that tends to be what you do most of the time, and then just save your pennies so you can go racing.
Wow. Sounds really intense. And obviously, I've seen a bit on TV, obviously, and obviously growing up, it used to be on TV quite a lot, more so now, unless you obviously, it's more so on Sky. It used to be on terrestrial TV quite a lot as a child.
Yeah.
And I remember just obviously watching how fast they go around the track and stuff. So obviously, what's it like? Because for you, it's second nature because it's obviously your profession, but what speeds do you hit on average when you're going around the track?
At the weekend, we were actually on one of the fastest straights we go to, and on a 600, we were reaching about 155, I think, top speed, 155 miles an hour, top speed. And then there's some corners where you'll travel like 100-mile-an-hour corners and stuff like that. But it's all sort of, I mean, it sounds like big scary numbers, but it feels slower on a circuit than it would like on a road because everything's quite spread out and everything's made to be as safe as possible. So the numbers can sound scary when you look at them, but it doesn't feel as scary as it sounds.
In terms of that, I mean, would you feel it more so then? Because obviously you're exposed to the elements and you're on two wheels as well. I know you said the tracks are wider, but would you feel the speed more so because you're on two wheels, exposed to the elements, as opposed to maybe being in the car?
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, you would. You probably would. Yeah, because you're like you say, exposed, and it's just you on top of this, on top of a bit of machinery with two wheels, and and that's literally it. But and obviously because you're out in the open, you feel the wind and everything. So I suppose so. Yeah, compared to four wheels, you'd feel it more.
And in terms of you then, so how did it all begin for yourself? Did it all start from a young age, or did you kind of join it like mid-teens, or?
Well, I started off racing around 12 years old, which is actually quite late to start. A lot of I started off most riders tend to start off on mini motos and small bike racing on like karting circuits, stuff like that. But when I joined about 12 years old, and a lot of riders start like 5-6 years old.
Okay.
So being quite a bit older, I was at a disadvantage because I was quite a bit taller and heavier. So on smaller bikes that didn't have a lot of power, and they weren't. It was sort of hindering me down straights and stuff like that. So I quickly progressed and moved on to bigger circuits. So I was sort of forced to learn pretty quickly. But it started off right at the beginning, pretty much by there was a big sort of, because my family's Italian, and there was a big sort of mini moto craze in Italy. They would sort of, I mean, you'd walk into a supermarket and there'd be like stalls just with mini motos on, just in like in a supermarket. So my dad like wanted to get one for ages and ages. My mum was trying to was trying to put him off the idea, and eventually we got one just for fun. And then we started taking it to some karting circuits, and we started seeing some of the faster, more competitive mini motos, and then it just sort of snowballed from there. Really, it was never really like an intention. It just sort of fell into it.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. And then, so in terms of like competing, is it like a weekend? Is it a weekly basis, or like once or twice a month? How does it work?
Well, normally it's about once or twice a month, or I think once a month really in a normal circumstance. But at the moment, because I mean the season was supposed to start sort of March time. But then obviously with all the with everything that's going on in the world, it all got cancelled and delayed and stuff. And thankfully we're back racing now, but it's in a very condensed calendar. So we're sort of every 2 weeks we're out on a race weekend. And I also do bits of commentary on the smaller bike racing.
Nice.
So if I'm not racing over at BSB, then I'm commentating on some other racing. So it's non-stop at the moment. I think I have a free weekend until end of October. But that's not normally the case.
Yeah. And how do you find it? You mentioned obviously commentary, and you touched on that a little bit, and you said you've done bits of commentary here and there. So how do you find it? Obviously, the difference between competing and then obviously commentating on it. What's the difference that you found?
Well, I only just started, or I started commentating this year, and I'm back doing it this weekend actually, and it's something I've only just started getting into. So it's really interesting because it's something I'm learning, and it's sort of behind the scenes, watching the racing, and the more journalism aspect of it, and going around talking to the riders and finding out everything. And it's less stressful in a weekend in that you're not focused on what you're eating, how you're sleeping, and doing all that kind of stuff, all the sort of sporty kind of stuff. But then you're sort of more doing sort of the more brain teasing stuff, trying to get around, talk to as many people as possible, find out as much as you can so you can use it in commentary. So it's good to be able to do both as well, because it keeps it keeps you in the scene as well. And in racing, and money's a big thing. So it also pays for the racing.
That's good. Can't complain with that. I mean, I suppose
Absolutely.
It gives you a different focus, because obviously you'll be able to see things from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And then,
yeah,
so, go on.
Yeah, it's to be able to see it from behind the scenes. Actually, I think it's helped me a little bit with the racing as well, being able to see racing in a different way.
Yeah. Okay. And like, is it similar to like F1, F2, and so on and so forth in terms of like funding? Do you need a lot of sponsorship and things to be involved in it?
Yeah, sponsorship's a big thing, a very big thing. And at the moment, it's quite difficult because obviously a lot of companies don't have the money and the budgets that they would normally have in the current climate of the world. So it is a big factor. You need to bring money to teams, and that's how it is nowadays. The sport's changed quite a lot over the past sort of 10 years. I was actually a couple of years ago, I was racing in world championships. Now I'm back in British championships. And when I was doing that, I was paying about, from sponsors and my family and stuff, we had to find about 65,000 euros just to be able to ride in the season. And that's what they asked for. And I understand why, because I know where that money goes. But it used to be the case that in that situation, the rider would be getting paid. And but in this day and age, it's not the way at all. The rider pretty much brings all the money right until top level, pretty much. You're paying for your riding.
What's the, because you mentioned there, you said you know where the money goes, so you know the reasons why it's so much. So if you want to just let us know, because as I mentioned, I haven't got a clue. So if you want to just let me know, because I'm coming from like a layman's perspective. So just let me know or let us know, why is it so much and where does the money go?
Well, in World Championships in particular, they've got sort of big trucks, big lorries that's filled with kit and stuff like that. So firstly, the lorries cost, and then shipping the bikes around Europe and around the world
Yeah.
is a big cost for them. And then you've got stuff like tires, petrol, spare parts, entry fees. There's all sorts of stuff that goes into a race weekend that's got to be paid for pretty much, and it's a constant expense. Like this year on 600s, pretty much every session we need to put new tires on it, and a set of tires will be about 350 quid.
Jeez.
So for a weekend, you're looking about £2,000 just tires alone. That's before anything else.
Jesus. Wow.
Yeah. So it's an
Really,
expensive
really
game.
expensive. Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, from that perspective, in comparison to football, because with football, all you need is a ball. And you can get a ball nowadays,
Yeah.
£3 or £4 if you're just a small child. And then you just put
Yeah.
some jumpers down and you've got a goal. So from the start, you're already kind of facing an uphill battle in the sport that you're in, just because
Yeah.
the financial aspect is so high.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's massive. Do you think that's kind of the financial side of it is putting people off in some ways in terms of like getting involved? Because I'm sure there's kids out there who may see people like yourself riding and see people on TV and stuff and think, well, I want to be that. I aspire to be that. But then the financial situation comes about and they realise they can't. Do you think that's kind of putting people off to a certain degree?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of riders, because in racing as well, there's not a lot of information out there. You're sort of always chasing a free ride or a paid ride, and no one really knows when you start actually getting paid or getting free rides. And the more and more I'm in the sport, the more and more I realise that's very late down the line. And it's so a lot of riders start and then they have to pull out because of funding, or sponsors pull out on them and they can't afford it anymore. I was mentored a few years ago by a guy called James Folkard, who's a multiple champion in a couple of championships, and he'd been out to Spain and done some racing there and stuff. And honestly, possibly one of the best riders I've seen. But he just wasn't able to make it in the sport because he couldn't get the backing or the funding or the right opportunities at the right time. And it's about the backing and the funding and who you know and all sorts of stuff like that. So it's difficult at the moment in racing, especially in the UK.
Yeah, geez, that must be so frustrating and disheartening, because I can only compare it to football, and yes, you do need a lot of luck in football and other sports as well, but invariably it's down to you in terms of your input and in terms of what you get out of it. Yeah, there are external sources and factors, but for him, like you mentioned there, he's probably the best rider that you've come across, but it was an external factor that was out of his control that hindered his chance of becoming maybe one of the greats or even just competing at a professional level. So from that perspective, it must be so hard to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it really is, and because I'm 21 now, so I'm sort of coming to a point in my life where I'm thinking about which way my life's going. I've just finished uni. I'm starting a master's in September, and I'm sort of thinking, well, how long can I keep this going for? Because it's a big financial drain, and it's a lot of work and stuff like that. But as much as I feel like I'm painting a really bad picture of racing at the moment, but it is beautiful, and it's an amazing sport, and it's you do it for the passion, obviously, but as in any sport, really, you do it for the passion, not for the money or anything like that. But sometimes you do think, how long can I keep this going for?
Yeah, I mean, this is what the podcast is for as well, because it gives people an opportunity to see sports people from a different perspective. And again, this is new to me. So for me now, I can walk away from this knowing a little bit about your sport and obviously the industry that you're in. So you're only being honest, and that's what I ask people to be. And you can go in as much detail as you want, obviously. So that's great. And obviously, I've learned a lot already. In terms of like the lifespan, normally I always draw on football just because that's what I used to play. And normally the average kind of career span is like 15 to 20 years, and maybe slightly longer now because obviously technology is improved and obviously infrastructure and players are getting more fitter. So what's the average lifespan for someone in your sport?
It's a good question, actually. It tends to be sort of top level rider will tend to retire around sort of where I'd say 35 years old.
Okay.
Roughly. Maybe a little bit older, some riders.
Yeah.
But you've got obviously at the moment in MotoGP, right in the Premier class, in the top class, right at the top of the tree in terms of motorbike racing, you've got Valentino Rossi, who's been around, who's been racing since before I was born, and he's still going, and he's about 40 something now, and he's still going right at the top at the top level. So it's, I would say, about around 35 would probably be like an average, but then you do get the odds person like Rossi that manages to keep going, and no one really knows how he's doing it, but yeah, the short answer will probably be around 35.
Okay. Yeah, I remember hearing about Valentino Rossi when I was growing up, and to be honest, I didn't know he was still racing, but yeah, that's incredible if he's still doing that.
Yeah.
Great.
No, absolutely.
You mentioned earlier that you're probably going to be approaching a career crossroads, and you kind of thinking about maybe what to do afterwards. Like maybe you may not continue, but obviously you're not sure yet. So I've done a bit of research, and I did notice that you studied journalism. Is that right, or are you still studying at the moment?
I just graduated from degree in journalism.
Oh, nice.
And now I'm going into doing a master's in automotive journalism, so a bit more focused and niche.
Yeah. That's really good, and obviously congratulations for graduating.
Thank you.
Great. It's a good achievement, and obviously to do that whilst still being kind of focused on motorcycle racing to the capacity that you're doing is really commendable. In terms of you deciding to go down the journalism route and obviously study while still competing, was that like a conscious thing? Were you thinking ahead of the game there, thinking, well, obviously motorcycle racing, whilst it's great, it's not going to last me until like retirement age, as in 60, 65. Was that conscious, and were you thinking about maybe the future and other career paths?
Yeah, I'd say maybe if I probably wasn't thinking about it massively, but I think subconsciously, yes. It's definitely, I was sort of thinking of ways, because my family sort of pushed me into university. I'm not saying that I didn't want to go, but they, sort of really, really sort of helped me, like, sort of pushed me in that direction.
Yeah.
So I was just sort of thinking about what I'd want to do, and what's almost like a backup. At that point, I was thinking of it as what's a backup for racing, what's something else I could do. And one thing that really sort of that was really playing on my mind is I wanted to be able to stay in the world of racing. And stay around the paddock and stay in that, stay in that environment, because it's something I've grown up with, and it's it's my life really. It's been my life for since 12 years old. So it's something I want to stay in, something I want to stay in touch with. And for me, I've always quite liked. I've been intrigued by journalism, and all the aspects of that. So sort of writing, commentating, presenting, podcasts, all sorts of stuff has sort of intrigued me. So I've trying to give it all a go, and see if just see what happens really.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if you don't try, you'll never know, and you've got nothing to lose whilst doing it. And obviously, you've succeeded anyway because you've graduated, so that's a massive bonus. You'll never get that taken away from you. How did you feel, obviously, whilst still competing at that level and studying as well? How did you find that, kind of combining the two?
It's it can be challenging, and sometimes I'm going to be honest. At some points, I was thinking, am I sort of with split commitments? Am I sort of could I, if I just focused on one thing, could I be have that one thing really good rather than sort of having split commitments on two things? I felt like sometimes I would make sacrifices on one or the other, and would think it would be better to have one thing. But when I'd sort of put my mind to it and sort of get my head down, then I was able to be able to juggle both, and I'm pretty sure. I'd like to say that I've done all right in both, and I think I can keep that going. And I'd like to keep that going for as long as possible, really. But one thing that's helped me massive as well is because I still go to Coventry University, and they've got like a sports scholarship scheme going, and they've been helping me out massively with that, and they've been doing all sorts to help. We give flexible timetables, and they provide me S&C and training and all sorts of support. So that's something that's also helped me balance both of them. And also I found, now that I've been able to focus my journalism on the racing scene, they sort of help each other out, because they're both in the same world. So I've met people through journalism that have helped me in racing, and I've met people in racing that have then helped me in journalism as well. So they've helped each other at the same time as well.
Brilliant. I mean, that's good that Coventry Uni are helping you out. I suppose that makes a lot of the situations slightly easier for yourself going forward. And you mentioned that you've obviously kind of networked indirectly. So it seems like there's a synergy with both, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's really good. And again, after speaking to many people on the podcast, and obviously just in general over the last kind of year or so, it seems like more people, especially sports people, they're generally doing something outside of their chosen sport. And the stats are there to show that if you've got an outside interest, which isn't going to hinder your performance, it bodes well, because in theory it's going to make you play better or perform better in whatever your chosen sport is. It's frustrating, because sometimes when I was growing up as a player, going back kind of many years now, more so when I was a youngster, you hear of kind of coaches not berating players, but maybe talking them down and maybe saying, look, you should concentrate more on your football because it's a distraction what you're doing off the field. And obviously as a youngster, you're going to be impressionable, especially if it's coming from someone who you aspire to or maybe look up to, or someone who's like a figure within the game. You're obviously going to potentially listen to what they say. So it's more, the information is more readily available now, and like I said, the information is there and the stats are there to show that if you've got an outside interest, which isn't going to be taking up too much of your time or isn't going to hinder your performance, it only goes well on the field or on the track or whatever you may be doing. So I'm assuming that's kind of how you felt when you were obviously doing the course as well then.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was also something to keep me going in the off season as well, because as much as you use the off season to train and get ready for when the season starts, training doesn't take up 24 hours of the day. You've still got loads of the day to fill. So having something else also to focus on has helped me in all areas, to be honest.
Definitely. And again, the podcast is generally about transitioning from sport to another career. And obviously, I'm not just focused on people who have retired. I want to speak to people like yourself who are still kind of making their way in their chosen sport. I think it's great what you're doing, because obviously you're focused on the future as well, not just the present. And you've made steps towards obviously achieving maybe a goal further down the line. In terms of your transferable skills, what would you say that you can bring to maybe journalism? Let's say journalism, because obviously that's what you're going to be focusing on, as well as obviously being a sports person. What would you say you bring from the motorcycle world, and obviously your personality, and what would you bring in terms of transferable skills to the world of journalism?
Well, I think the first thing that sort of comes to mind is that I think in every sport, you've sort of every athlete is sort of got this mindset of learning, progressing, and always trying to find ways to improve and get better with things. And I feel like that mindset that I've picked up from the racing has helped me, is currently helping me with my commentating, because it's a brand new thing that I've only just started, and I'm always now I'm in the process of sort of learning the best ways to improve myself in that area, and I think I'd like to think I've improved quite a bit since my first race that I commentated on, and that's, I think, pretty much come from that mindset that you pick up from sport of always trying to improve yourself and always thinking about ways of improving and moving forward, and also in journalism, contact is a big thing. It's massive in journalism, having all the right contacts, the right people to speak to, and get interviews and stuff like that. And contacts is also really important in racing. So I've learned to to always try and talk to the right people, and I want to always be finding contacts and stuff like that. So I feel like that's also helped me in both areas.
Brilliant. And in terms of yourself and the industry as a whole, in terms of motorcycle racing, do you get help? So when it comes to, say, like we're going on, say, 10 years from now, so you're, 31 in 10 years' time or thereabouts, and you're thinking, well, I've done all I can in racing, I've got to the level I wanted to get to or better, or whatever it may be, and you're now focused on maybe journalism or something else, so you're going to transition away from motorcycling. Is there any help? Like, is there an organisation where you can turn to and say, look, this is what I'm thinking about doing, are you able to assist me? Because what I'm trying to say is, in football, we've got the PFA, Professional Footballers Association. So that's who we would generally draw on for maybe some advice or help going forward, aside from other kind of general contacts and people that you've met. Is there something in of that type of nature within the sport that you're in?
Not to my knowledge, no. I'm not aware of any sort of organisations that help sort of you transfer after a career, after racing into another career. But one thing I will say is that the bike racing scene is quite a very close community.
Right.
I was a small community, but it's like everyone knows each other, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's been good to be able to make contacts in who are from my racing, from the journalism side of it as well. So contacts no commentators, people like Eurosport. I've done some work for Eurosport, and Eurosport cover most of the bike racing.
Right.
So it's quite easy, or I won't say easy, but it's been easy access to sort of the right people to be able to speak to, and to be able to then make that transition into a journalism career whenever the racing does cease.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. Well, at least it seems like you've got obviously your head screwed on. It seems like in terms of making transition, it seems, I wouldn't say easy, but you've got the avenues which you're already aware of that you can kind of take and maybe get advice from. So that bodes well going forward. But I do think sometimes sports people, once they're kind of when they approach retirement, it's seen as a negative, and then they're kind of stuck. They're stuck in that bubble, and they don't know how to break out of it, and they don't know who to contact for fear of being ridiculed or embarrassment. And I always say, if you don't ask, the answer's always going to be no. So from what you just mentioned there, you should be fine anyway. So I mean, going forward, then just let us know. Like, when's your next race? Obviously, what your plans are, like short term in terms of race. Where do you see yourself? Obviously, you want to win and stuff, but just let us know a little bit about where we can find you, where you're going to be racing, where you normally train and stuff.
Well, next up on the calendar is Silverstone. That's in 2 weekends time. So we've just done Snetterton weekend just gone. Had that race yesterday. So the next ones then will be at Silverstone. I'm looking at the moment to because it's my rookie year in this class. I'm looking to sort of I've almost got sort of like a checklist. Like I've picked up my first sort of target was to get top 15, which is points. So the last point is 15th. Picked up 12th at the first race, so that ticked that off. Yeah. Well, we didn't finish the last race, so that one doesn't count. But then the next one, I'm looking to get top 10. But it's a circuit that we've already tested at, and we've already been around on this bike, and it went very well. And now the bike's in a better place than it was when we tested there. So I think we can achieve top 10 at Silverstone, and I wouldn't be surprised if we achieve more. But I think top 10 is a realistic target at the moment. And then once we're sort of comfortable in top 10, then obviously keep looking to move forward, top fives, podiums, and then eventually wins. And hopefully next season we can start pushing for podiums and wins and stuff like that.
Nice. Sounds great. And hopefully, obviously, you achieve what you want to achieve. In terms of yourself personally, where can we find you? So where can we find you on social media? I don't know how it works. Have you got like a team name that we can locate you on, or like how does it work in the sport? But just let everyone know. Just what I want you to do is try and let everyone know as much as they can. So where we can find you personally on the socials, and then in terms of your team, have you got a name or whatever where we can find you?
Yeah. Well, the team I'm running for this year, and last year, they're called Haybuck Motorcycle Racing Team. And if you and their page is really easy to find on Facebook. So that's Haybuck Motorcycle Racing. My Facebook's quite easy to find as well because I've got quite a unique name. So it's Trystan Finocchiaro, hashtag or hash 58, and that's my page. So if anyone could give that a like, that'd be really appreciated. Also, I'm also on Instagram and Twitter, although I don't use Twitter a great deal. But Instagram, Trystan Federico Finocchiaro. It's a long name and it's a unique name, so it's quite easy to find. And exactly the same on Twitter.
Good stuff. Really appreciate your time. Obviously, hope you all the best. Well, wish you all the best going forward. Sure, you'll be fine anyway, either way. Keep doing what you're doing. Obviously, keep in touch, and we'll go from there. Okay.
Will do. Thank you. Thanks a lot for having me.
No problem at all. See you soon. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.